Coming up next is Patrice Washington. I'm so excited. I love talking to Patrice. She, of course, is the host of the podcast Redefining Wealth. Back when Steve Harvey had his daytime talk show, she was the Steve Harvey Show money person. She has been all over media. Today, she's joining us because she is one of three coaches, along with our friend Gene Chatsky and Luis Barajas, who has a big YouTube channel. She's a coach for the show Opportunity Knocks. We're going to talk about maybe some help that you can find in your area, about some of the coaching that she did on the show. And of course, I love talking to people like Patrice about behind the scenes. How do you make a show like this about money and make it interesting? It's super fun. Always talking to Patrice. So I'm sure she's going to bring it. Patrice Washington, how are you?
I'm good, Joe. I'm glad to be back.
I got to know how this whole thing started. So does PBS just call you? I mean, did you? Because if somebody told me, of course, this would never happen to me. This would just happen to you, not to me. But did you get an email? Did PBS just, PBS, Patrice, PBS?
Yeah. I actually got an email from the production company who created the show Opportunity Knocks. And I'll be honest with you, Joe, I'm so used to getting these random emails about show opportunities that I usually am just prepared to say no. Yeah, I'm usually prepared to just say no, because usually there are things that just don't feel right. Even though the premise might be totally fine, you know, I'm big on just being in alignment and making sure that anything I say yes to feels really good for me. It's like a very strong yes, not a hesitant yes. And so I was totally prepared to get on this Zoom call, listen to the pitch and go, no, thank you. But thanks so much, right, for the offer. And I got on the call, and the creator of the show, Jamie Strayer, was on, and a few other folks, they were on, and they started to explain the premise. And I literally just thought about myself, and you know my story, but I thought about myself when I was at this point of like losing everything and suffering in silence and not knowing where to go and what to do and who to trust. And I was like, oh my gosh, something like this would have been great if I saw something like this while I was watching PBS, because my daughter was teeny tiny at that time, and I was always watching, you know, all the PBS shows in the morning. I'm like, had I stumbled upon this, it probably would have really supported me in getting help sooner. And it was an instant yes for me.
I did get this instant pay it forward vibe, Patrice.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what it felt like. It felt like here's an opportunity to do something where I could share my story with people who probably are in a space right now where they could really resonate with it and understand and just create another layer of just relatability, and use the platform that I've built for good, because that's what matters at this point.
Let's listen to a clip. This is the trailer for season 1. By the way, I like the sound of that. Season 1 of about 30 seasons. Let's listen to this trailer.
Every day, millions of Americans must make the choice between rent and food.
I definitely live paycheck to paycheck.
But what many Americans don't know is that there are methods available in their own backyard built to help them with these struggles.
I didn't realize it was possible for us to do that outside of a VA loan.
Opportunity Knocks has matched 3 expert coaches with 6 struggling families to give a personalized financial experience that even you can benefit from.
I've always told myself, gotta break the cycle, you gotta break the cycle.
Through this journey, we will see that the American dream is possible with the right advice.
Do it like a math problem, because we gotta figure it out.
Our coaches will guide these families with resources within their community that will unlock the doors to financial freedom.
You gotta stay focused on the goal.
Will the obstacles they face prove to be too much for these 6 families?
Change is hard. Yeah, change is hard.
There's no way we can get ahead here.
I feel stuck. Or will the coaches help them open the door when opportunity knocks?
So exciting and inspirational. And I mean, just the people crying in these, and not crying because they're sad, crying because their eyes are open, that they have resources, Patrice. But tell me about the other coaches, because it's you and a couple other pretty badass individuals that you get to work with.
It is incredible. So first of all, Gene Chatsky, financial editor for the Today Show for 25 years, someone who I actually watched, for years and looked at as a mentor, and especially as a woman in the personal finance space. I literally got to do this alongside her. And then Luis Barajas, who many people refer to as the Dave Ramsey of the Spanish speaking world, right? He is incredible. I mean, he's a certified financial planner. He has done great work. He serves on the CNBC Financial Advisory Council. He's just done magnificent things, not just in the United States, but in Spanish speaking countries as well. And so I really love the diversity of the coaches that were selected, because I think that we collectively just represent more of what America looks like, because oftentimes when you see things like this, it's just a very narrow scope. And so, I am so excited I get to work alongside these veterans.
But did you actually spend any time with the two of them, or were the three of you in different cities working with different people?
We were in different cities working with different people, but we did come together for the opening of the show as well as the finale. So you will see us together roundtabling what's the best path for each family to take. So yes, we coached people individually, but we did also kind of bounce different things off of one another to make sure that people got a very well-rounded, support.
Well, people, I see things like this, Patrice, and I always think, this took a couple days, but much like you and I with our podcast, how much time this stuff takes, right? It takes forever to make this.
Yes.
When did this project start, and how long did it take to make this season?
So we actually were casted in 2021. But then as different things started to happen with COVID, and so some states or cities where we were planning on going to film had shutdowns, or there were storms that delayed things. I mean, it was one of those things. I always believe that when something really amazing is coming, sometimes you got to go through some crap first, right? Like before the rainbow comes out, there are a few storms. We literally were postponed a couple times. But I think that all things happen in divine order, because when we finally got into it, it took a few months to film because we did visit the families multiple times. And also several of the families were able to keep in contact with their coaches. So for Jean, one of Jean's families, for example, they went through one of her programs. So they were in constant. Yeah, which was a phenomenal, right? She ended up opening a program around the same time that she met that family, and they were able to go through the program. For me, one of my clients, I was able to stay in communication with and do some Zoom coaching sessions with her outside of going to her home a few times to meet her. So many of us built really great relationships with the families that we supported throughout the process.
But I know some of these programs, like a reality TV show, right? They don't want you to know the people ahead of time. They want to capture it all on film. So when you first met the people you were coaching, did you have to meet them with the camera on, or were you able to meet them behind the scenes first and get an idea?
Pretty much with the camera on. So literally we would go and knock on their doors. At least in my case, I would walk up with the camera on me and literally knock on the door. And that would be the first time that I saw the family, that I met them, that I heard their stories. So a lot of the emotion that you see and feel in the show is very much real. It is literally what happened in real time. And it was great, too, because as you know this by now, Joe, I'm very animated sometimes with my facial expressions. Me, can you believe it?
Shock.
I'm actually really animated. And so from the few clips I've seen, because I haven't seen the show yet really either, but I remember sitting at the kitchen table, for example, of one family that I'm helping. They're from Lake Charles, Louisiana. And I'm sitting with them at their kitchen table and asking questions. And my facial expressions, I don't know how to hide, right? So I'm asking about like their credit card debt and like how these things happen and listening to all the stories. And at the end of the day, the director is like, your facial expressions are classic. And I go, oh my gosh, I'm so used to like talking to people virtually that I forget that those are the faces I make. He's like, oh yeah, you're going to be a meme for sure. But it was all genuine. It was all authentic.
That's funny. I was told that when I haven't been a financial planner in a long time, but I was told that when I was a financial planner, that it was the same, that my clients, Patrice, would get halfway through explaining something they were doing. They're like, yeah, that's dumb, isn't it? I can tell from your face how dumb that is. I'm like, I'm sorry. I should not. I need to just be, yes. Hey, let's play another clip because this is somebody you helped. And I love this because we can dive into some good financial talk that will help, I think, all of our stackers out there. This is you coaching Michelle.
And so you have about $600 a month left, right, to make it through the month? Well, I'm gonna have to be honest with you. Where you are right now and for what you said you want to do, which is start your business, it's ridiculous. And eventually, if you want to start the business, you're going to have to get off Section 8, right? Like you're going to have to make more money. It's always going to hold you back from actually living out your full potential and really getting a chance to build your empire, right? Your transportation empire. If you can only make so much, it's always going to keep you playing small, right? And so for the sake of the kids, too, you want to show them what's possible.
Patrice is not judging me. She's telling me to focus on ways to get off of Section 8, ways to improve my life.
I absolutely love that. And by the way, that is the first reaction I feel like, Patrice, we always have when we have money chats, which is why I love the show in general, because it makes it so that we'll chat more about it. Like we always think when we have this money chat, somebody's judging us. And so Michelle immediately says, hey, she's not judging me, which is awesome. If you and I are talking about money, it's not that I'm judging you. We're trying to help each other.
Right. And I love how open and receptive she was to the coaching. And I love that she could feel the love, that it was not about judgment at all. But the reality is that there are a lot of brilliant people who have these big dreams, these audacious dreams. And because they can't mentally get out of this cycle that they can only do so much, it holds them back. It's not that they're not capable. It's not that they don't have the vision to do it. And sometimes we make financial conversation strictly about cutting and saving. And you know that I like to talk about finances from a lens of abundance. And so how do we think bigger? How do we think greater? Like, how do we think about what we can create versus just what we can cut? And that was a part of what I wanted to expose Michelle to, especially because she's a wonderful single mother, and the vision that she has for her children requires her modeling and demonstrating something different than what has been the reality in their family.
Can you, before we get into some of that, because I want to dive into all those things a little bit, because I think this will help our community a ton. Number one, tell us a little bit more about Michelle. What does she do that she only has $600 a month left now? And then you did talk about her kids and how important her relationship with her kids are. Flesh out Michelle a little bit for us, Patrice. Who is she?
So Michelle is a single mom who left New York City as her kids are, becoming of age. They're teenagers, or preteen and teen. And she left New York City for a better life in Florida. And when she got to Florida, she had a good friend who encouraged her to come. And then their relationship just fizzled. And so now she's in a new state, in a new space, all with alone. Her children, all alone. And the way that Section 8 and just different resources that she was accustomed to in New York panned out, she actually ended up far worse because she was not getting the same type of support and benefits. And this is a woman who does work full time in transportation. So she was a school bus driver in New York, but because the cost of living in New York was so high, she could make a certain amount. She was getting Section 8, but when she came down to Florida, Section 8 looked completely different. And so now she's not in the best neighborhood. It's not necessarily the best home. And then she makes even less as a bus driver there. So it just turned everything upside down for her. And what was supposed to be a better opportunity for her and her children kind of turned out to be a bit of a nightmare. And
what I found was great with this clip was that you immediately focus on something. Back to your point about working from a spot of abundance, everybody's trying to cut. And you can't shrink your way to greatness. You can't. You immediately say you need to make more money. Like this sounds like Michelle's got an income problem as much as it's much more than an expense problem.
Right. And then, to add to all of that, because she's on Section 8, in order to leverage Section 8, you can only make so much. So there's the constant battle that I think many people face. I need support with housing because the limits and the way that the system is just set up is that you have to be kept down in order to get any type of help. Right. And so even if you desire to do better, they will cut you off immediately as opposed to weaning you off so that you can build up your income and your resources. And people are afraid of that. If I get a better job tomorrow, I instantly lose the support with my housing. Well, if I haven't had savings, and if I have a car that needs repair, and if I have medical bills that I still need to pay, just because I earn more income, I'm not instantly ready with the first paycheck to lose support with my housing. And so people are in a constant straddling the fence about what do? I want to move forward in my life. I want to have access to capital. I want to have, these resources for my children. But the minute I step into that, I lose all support.
All the safety net is gone. And if
immediately.
And if the new income stream only lasts a month or two and it doesn't work out, you are done. So there's this, it's not like making $1 more. You got to make thousands more to be in the same spot.
Right. And Michelle is one of, I think, many Americans who they're literally right at the edge. Like she was at the edge. If she made, I think, another $500 to $1,000 more, it would cut her off from resources. But she's upside down with a car. Yeah. And her insurance is super high, and her car insurance. And so what we were able to do was we did cut some things, but I wanted her to be aware of what she could create, not just cut, because many people, Joe, in this country who are finding themselves, between a rock and a hard place, they have already cut as much as they possibly could. It's not like they're living it up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They have already cut as much as they can. I love what we do on the show, though, because it does expose them to resources that will help them save money in even more ways. But ultimately, how can we get more people utilizing their gifts, their talents, their experiences, their education, all of those things to make more so that they can even keep up with inflation and all the other things that are going on?
How do you, where did you start, Patrice? I mean, if you're starting from a spot of abundance, just tactically, where did you start? Did you start with trying to climb that make a lot more money, build that income stream, or where did you begin?
Well, with Michelle, her vision is really big. So she's been in the transportation industry for many, many years as a driver. And in Florida in particular, she saw a need for more transportation for elderly people who couldn't get to the grocery store or to their doctor's appointments because she's in a area where there's a lot of retirees who don't necessarily have, children that live in the area or grandchildren who can support them. But in order for her to get the right type of van and insurance and get it all up and running, that's a process, right? So while I wanted her in creation mode and thinking about it, for me, everything starts with mindset. We started to just talk about dreaming a new dream. What could this look like if you stop limiting yourself and saying these things are not possible for people like me? And so a lot of it for her was affirming something new, visualization. I wanted her to start in that mode, to start to break down the limiting beliefs she had about what's possible. But we did go to my favorite tool, and what Opportunity Knocks is all about is connecting people with the Opportunity Finder. And so this is a really unique database that this show has put together that is populated with nonprofits that have been vetted, CDFIs, community development financial institutions, MDIs, minority depository institutions, like all of these different organizations that are in the backyard, like in all of our backyards all across the country. We just don't know. So it literally helps people source free citizenship, legal services, rental assistance, reducing interest rates, car refinances, getting rid of predatory loans, mentorship to start a business. Like, this tool is so populated. So our next step was to just flush out everything she may possibly need and then connect her with a local resource and a few CDFIs in her backyard. And so they were doing the tactical work, and I was really on top of keeping her mentally engaged, because we all know it starts with mindset, and it really starts with believing that you deserve better and you can have better. Yeah. She, it sounds like, though, you're hinting at she might become an entrepreneur, Patrice. She is. And I don't want to give it away, but we definitely, we fleshed out some different things. And she even now post the show is working on the 1.0 version. And that's just another thing for anyone who's like, well, I don't have money. Where do I start with entrepreneurship? I always tell my clients, even in my programs, Joe, we can have a big vision, but don't be so attached to how you get there. That may evolve over time. There is probably a 1.0 version of where you can begin. And that's what I had to do with Michelle. What is the 1.0 version? You have a vision to do all of this, and I love it. But when the vision is so grand and we are trying to put food on the table and trying to take care of basic necessities, we can become overwhelmed very quickly and give up on the vision altogether. Yeah. So I always get people to draft out, what is the big Mac Daddy, I can dream in color because dreaming is free version? And then how do we scale it back to get to a place where we can just start and take the next best step? And that's what I did with Michelle. What about, you mentioned a relationship with her kids and about teaching her kids. Tell me about that part, because that seems like there's a lot there too. To me, this is a family thing. I think for so long, parents have thought that if they left kids out of the financial conversations, even the hard ones, when you're going through a lot of financial struggle, that you're protecting them. That's my family. That was my family. Yeah. And the truth is, you're doing more harm than good, right? Because they need to see and be a part of the solution. They need to understand what's going on, especially when you have teenagers. I think, though, that at any level, I used to teach my daughter about save, give, spend envelopes when she was 5. And to this day, now that she gets an allowance on Cash App, she is still able to divvy it up and say, Mom, I still have X amount of dollars left at the end of the week or at the end of the month, even though she has full reign over how she manages her Cash App. Right. So I think that the earlier we can start to have these conversations and be real, because even in our financial failures, there is a lesson to pass on to our children. And if we can involve them earlier, then I think we have a greater chance of breaking the cycle. Many of us don't realize that. We think we're protecting our children, but what we're doing is perpetuating these cycles of financial struggle because we're not being honest about where we are and what we're doing. And I think when we involve kids, as Michelle, you'll see in the show, she started to involve her children. What a great lesson. Because Fabulous. There are also going to be things that they will avoid naturally because they have an awareness. But also, if they ever find themselves in a pickle, and most of us as adults in America have found ourselves in some financial pickle at one time or another, they will be able to sit down, as you saw in the clip, and strategize and be clear about the numbers so that they can at least brainstorm possibilities, as opposed to running away from it, which is what many people do. And running away, brilliant short-term solution, never works. There's never been a time in my long term. Never been a time in my life when I'm like, I'm so glad I ran from that. Right. And we have an opportunity to teach our young people how to face things, because that's where the empowerment comes from. That's where you become more empowered, when you can take a look at what your actual situation is, be radically honest, and then go to a tool like the Opportunity Finder and say, I'm going to get support. I believe that there is something out there that can support me, as I go through this. And a lot of it just starts with just the the belief and the awareness that there is support available to you. Because when we hide out and we run from it, we assume that we're all in it alone. And what I love about the show is that you see that you're not alone and that there are actually so many resources. And a lot of these nonprofits, Joe, they want to help more people.
Yes.
They want to serve more people. They're
can't
just
get
not
the word
getting
out.
Yeah, they don't have the resources to necessarily get the word out. And so this show, highlighting these different organizations and CDFIs and all of this stuff, I really pray is going to just create such a ripple effect of magnificent impact for people, for the nonprofits who so desperately want to help their communities, and for the people in the community who so desperately need support, but they're afraid of the judgment, maybe, or the guilt or the embarrassment, or just don't know where to turn. Being able to bring these two groups together for me is why I said yes.
Let's listen to one last clip that kind of puts us together, and then we'll tell people where they can find it.
Okay.
You think this is going to be something that'll help you get on your feet financially and be able to buy a house?
You have 13 credit cards.
I didn't want the credit card. I wanted the candy bar. So I just signed my name on the line.
There is homework because nothing comes without hard work.
We're going to start off with the Opportunity Finder.
That's basically a tool that you can use to find different not-for-profit resources in your community.
It searches on the map, it pulls it up. We can schedule an appointment right here.
Oh, awesome.
We need to get you paired up with a CDFI here in Tampa that's going to really help you take a look at your budget.
I want you to find a place to show that art and start selling some of that artwork, okay?
Wow, that would be like a dream come true.
To find your own opportunities, please visit opportunityknocks.net.
And there's our website right there, Patrice.
Yeah.
Opportunityknocks.net has it all. And by the way, I think there's a few different ways. I saw a Facebook post from Jamie, might have been an Instagram post, but you guys are showing this, PBS stations around the country are showing it. However, because they're independent, if you can't find it, call your station and request it. And I think because, Patrice, your community and our community are the supreme money nerds, we're kind of the tip of the spear. Like, we should be the people advocating for this, I think. Let's all call our PBS station and say, let's get this thing on.
Absolutely. I think it's so complimentary to all of the work that we've done over the years, because many of us, as I shared, not too long ago, many of us, when we hit publish on our podcasts or when we put our posts out or we write our books, we're not there in the trenches with the people. And it is beautiful that we bring awareness to this stuff. But there are so many people in our country who need hand holding that we don't necessarily have the capacity to do. So to introduce them to a resource that they can, again, put in their address and get resources literally in their zip code. A bus ride or a walk or just a drive away, and go and sit down and actually get the help that they need. We should all be talking about this. There's not a person who is listening who, if they don't need it for themselves, you have an aunt, you have an uncle, you have a sibling, you have a cousin, you have a neighbor, you have a coworker, someone that you can reach out to right now needs one of the services that are populated in this Opportunity Finder. And you being able to say, I heard about this great resource, is what's going to help all of us make more progress and move forward. And I'm so grateful for you, Joe, and just for sharing this with your community, because you are the ultimate money nerd. You are one of the ultimate money nerd ambassadors. And I'm so grateful that more people will just get to know, look, you might be way past, needing these types of services. Doesn't mean that your friends and family and your neighbors and your coworkers, doesn't mean that everyone around you is, and they need it.
Man, imagine if that one call that you make helps somebody in your community start a new business, get their financial life in order. We truly are this community. I'm in this little town of Texarkana, Texas, in Texarkana, Arkansas, right next door. And man, if we can bring our community with us, it just helps all of us. If you want to watch it, and you're not able to get through to your PBS station, or if you miss it, you can still go to opportunityknox.net. And by the way, that is where, if you need the resources, I believe, Patrice, that's where all these resources are at as well, is at the website.
Yes, absolutely. And you can also catch it on PBS Passport. It's PBS's streaming service.
Yeah, it's like their HBO Max, right? The PBS version of HBO Max, PBS Max.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
PBS Passport. Patrice, congratulations on a job well done. That's so exciting to get a look behind the scenes as well. And great talking to you again.
Oh, always a pleasure talking to you, Joe. Thank you so much.